Welcome back, everybody. In this session, we are going to talk about some other post-structuralist thinkers. We have already covered the most important post-structuralist thinkers, but that is not all. We have some more also, which we are going to see in this session. Let's begin. The first one is Paul de Man. Paul de Man was a Belgian-born literary critic. He was born in 1919 and he passed away in 1983. And he's known for, all of these post-structuralist thinkers that we're going to talk about today are somehow related with deconstruction. And even Paul de Man, he is known for his contribution to deconstruction and how he worked with the works of Jacques Derrida. De Man is known for his engagement with deconstructive philosophy, particularly through his readings of works by Nietzsche and Kierkegaard and others. So what de Man has done is he has engaged with the works of Friedrich Nietzsche and Kierkegaard and some others also, and he has given his deconstructive philosophy, and he played a very significant role in introducing deconstruction to American academia. What we need to know about Paul de Man's contribution is his rhetoric reading. What he said was, there is only one kind of language, and that is rhetoric. There is no figurative language, he said. हमें deconstruction में क्या होता है? That there are continuous, endless chains of signifiers, and the meaning is always deferred. And that is the reason that Paul de Man says that there is no referential language, because language किसी और चीज़ को रेफर कर ही नहीं रही है, वो तो कोई एक पर्टिकुलर चीज़ को रेफर नहीं कर रही है. There are endless signifiers in it, and that's his major concept. De Man's work often focused on issues related to language, interpretation, and the nature of reading. किस तरह की reading होनी चाहिए? He explored how texts can subvert their own meanings and expose the complexities of language. What you will find in all of the theorists, thinkers that we're going to talk about today is, if you've understood deconstruction's philosophy of deconstruction, it's almost the same, obviously, for everyone. Everybody has talked about the same thing, that language has complexities in it, and there are endless signifiers in it, and all of that. That's what, there's no center. That's what all of these thinkers are also going to talk about. The major concept of rhetorical reading emphasizes how texts use language to persuade and manipulate readers. कोई भी text है, वो लैंग्वेज को यूज़ करता है रीडर्स को परस्यूएड करने के लिए, मैनिपुलेट करने के लिए, हमें बहका देते हैं टेक्स्ट्स. He believed that language carries inherent rhetorical strategies that affect the way we understand and interpret texts. De Man often explored how texts employ irony and paradox. So he's talked about two major things, that text employs irony and paradox to actually undermine stable meanings. He argued that texts generate multiple and contradictory interpretations that resist fixed interpretation. Same thing. कि fixed interpretation तो है ही नहीं, multiple interpretations हैं and contradictory interpretations हैं. तो irony और paradox उसमें main role play करते हैं. The next thinker is J. Hillis Miller. Hillis Miller was born on March 5th, 1928. He's an American literary critic and scholar who has made significant contributions to the field of literary theory, deconstruction, and also literary criticism. He's known for his engagement again with the works of Jacques Derrida. So just like Paul de Man, Hillis Miller has also worked with Jacques Derrida's works. And again, he has explored deconstructive approaches to literature. इन सब ने क्या किया है? Deconstructive reading किया है. Literature के बहुत सारी टेक्स्ट्स को उठा के उनको डिकंस्ट्रक्ट किया है, डिकंस्ट्रक्टिव अप्रोच अप्लाई किया है. Miller has authored number of influential books. I have put down a few. The Disappearance of God, 5 19th century writers. So what I want you to do is check who are these authors that he talks about. 1963. Then Charles Dickens, The World of His Novels, 1958. The Ethics of Reading, 1987, Hawthorne and History, 1991, and Topographies, 1995, among others. Miller, like Derrida, emphasized the idea of difference. Just like Derrida, we've already covered the topic difference, defer and differ. Just like Derrida, he has also explored this idea of difference, which refers to the inherent difference and deferrals within language. Just like I said, that all of these deconstructive thinkers have given almost the same things, that text, language, there is a difference and there are deference. There is a postponement of meaning, and because of that postponement of meaning, it prevents a fixed meaning, it prevents stable meaning. He believed that texts are composed of endless traces of differences that shape interpretation. ठीक है? Now Hillis Miller का एक और किस्सा है जो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, बहुत नोटवर्दी है, which is his argument with M.H. Abrams. M.H. Abrams, being a new critic, gave his own arguments, and Hillis Miller, being a deconstructionist or a poststructuralist, gave his own arguments. They engaged in a well-known debate within the field of literary theory. This debate centered around differing perspectives on literary interpretations and the role of theory in understanding literature. Miller, known for his engagement with deconstruction, represented a more post-structuralist and deconstructive perspective, while Abrams, a more prominent literary critic and scholar, he represented a more traditional kind of a approach to literary analysis. अब Abrams के क्या views थे और Miller के क्या views थे? Abrams emphasized the importance of close reading. I think you've all seen the class on new criticism. New critics क्या चाहते थे? Close reading पे focus करते थे, and new critical approach which focused on analyzing the text itself without relying heavily on external contexts, autotelic text. He believed that literary analysis should prioritize the author's intent, the formal elements of the text. तो यही वो चाहते थे कि if you are analyzing a text, you have to pay attention to the formal elements of the text, the qualities that make a work enduring. Miller, on the other hand, he drew from post-structuralist and deconstructive theories, and he questioned stability. इन्होंने कहा कि हम एनालाइज क्या करेंगे जब मीनिंग स्टेबल नहीं है. So there's multiple interpretations हैं. So he emphasized that language is inherently ambiguous and that interpretations are influenced by various factors. We cannot only take author's intent into question or the formal elements of the text, because text uses language which manipulate the readers. So language is very ambiguous, and the interpretations are influenced by a number of factors, including readers' subjectivity also. How are we receiving the text? वो भी important है. He argued that literary theory, including deconstruction, provides valuable insights into the complexities of language. इन्होंने कहा अगर deconstructive approach use करेंगे तो हमें पता चलेगा that कितने सारे complexities हैं language में, and the ways in which texts generate multiple meanings. The debate between Miller and Abrams was most prominently showcased in a series of essays and responses. किसी ने ऐसे लिखा, दूसरे ने रिस्पॉन्ड किया, फिर उसको रिस्पॉन्ड किया, ऐसे चलता रहा. It was published in a journal called Critical Inquiry. If you look at your book, Miller's first major deconstructive essay was The Critic as Host. You can note that down. And The Critic as Host was a response to M.H. Abrams. See, it was not completely a response, but it was, in a way or two, a response to M.H. Abrams' essay. It was called The Deconstructive Angel. ठीक है? तो Abrams ने इस वर्क में The Deconstructive Angel में he has attacked the deconstructive strategy of leaving a text undecidable. इन्होंने कहा ये क्या मतलब है? How can you leave a text undecidable? But then Miller ने ऐसे लिखा, and he has talked about, he has given some examples also, and he says, let's go back and find out the etymology of the word parasite. तो आप बताओ कि अगर आप parasite word के etymology में जाओ तो उसका मतलब क्या था और अब क्या है? अब तो it is in a negative term, but at one point of time, the term parasite is made of two words, para and cytos. Para का मतलब था beside the grain, or site, it comes from the word cytos, which meant food. So at one point of time, parasite actually meant something positive. maybe somebody who would sit beside you and eat food, maybe your guest. But now parasite is not a guest. And then the word host, ठीक है, host etymologically means both guest and stranger also. Guest भी है, stranger भी है. So multiple, see, language is like that. Synchronic study, diachronic study. The next thinker is Jean Baudrillard. Baudrillard is often associated with postmodernism, ठीक है, and critical theory. इनके वर्क को हम लोग deconstructionist framework में बहुत कम देखते हैं, categorize नहीं करते हैं, लेकिन instead Baudrillard developed his own distinct theories that focused on hyperreality and simulation. However, जो भी उन्होंने कहा, it is very close to deconstruction. That is why we talk about Baudrillard here. Hyperreality simulation, simulacra की इन्होंने बात की है. So Simulacra and Simulation was a work, very well-known work of Baudrillard, 1981. It explores how modern society has moved beyond representation and entered a state of simulation. Simulation क्या होता है? Copies. जहाँ एक ऐसी कॉपी जहाँ पे आप रियल और कॉपी के बीच में फ़र्क ही ना बता पाओ, इस तरह की एक कॉपी. तो ये कहते हैं कि हम लोग ऐसी एक मॉडर्न सोसाइटी में एंटर कर गए हैं जहाँ पे हम लोग वी आर सराउंडेड बाय कॉपीज एंड वी नो लॉन्गर मतलब कॉन्शियसली वी डोंट रियली अंडरस्टैंड कि क्या रियल है क्या कॉपी है. वी आर जस्ट गोइंग इन इट, वी आर लिविंग इन इट. He discusses how the lines between reality and simulation have been blurred. The concept of simulacra refers to copies without an original, and simulation refers to the process of creating hyper-real environment that mimic reality. ठीक है? Baudrillard argues that modern society has entered a state of hyper-reality, where simulations of reality become more real than the reality they are meant to represent. Hyper-real मतलब copy being more real than the original. Hyperreality. Simulation becomes a form of hyperreality that shapes our perception and experience. And Baudrillard ने 4 orders outline किए simulation के, and he said धीरे धीरे progress करते हैं हम, progressing from a faithful representation of reality to complete detachment of reality. सबसे पहला counterfeit, second number पे production of meaning, third is social reality, and fourth is simulacra, the ultimate moving away from reality. And he had put down some examples also. Counterfeit mein he talked about counterfeit money. It's a classic example, he said, of the first order of simulation. Second, production of meaning mein he said, he talked about American flag. और let's कोई भी आप flag ले लो, आपके सामने flag नहीं है, but what does a flag symbolically represents? Patriotism, है ना? Being one with the country, the symbolic meaning of flag. It's not there in front of you, really. Production of meaning, how we produce meaning out of symbols. Third is social reality, something which is not even there, but it has become the norm, it has become socially very real. For example, gender roles and stereotypes. They don't exist naturally, right? That's also a kind of a simulacra. And fourth, finally, when he talks about simulacra, he gives the example of Disneyland. This has been asked many times in the exam. Disneyland serves as an example of the fourth order of simulation. It is not a direct copy of a specific place, but an entirely constructed environment that simulates various realities. If you have seen Disneyland, maybe not really seen it, but you know about it, you've heard about it, what is it? वहाँ पे कुछ भी रियल नहीं है, बट द वर्ल्ड दैट इज क्रिएटेड इन अ डिज्नीलैंड वो ऐसा है फेरी टेल्स वाला, एकदम डिफरेंट, बट इट्स अ डायरेक्ट कॉपी ऑफ अ स्पेसिफिक, इट्स नॉट अ डायरेक्ट कॉपी ऑफ अ स्पेसिफिक प्लेस, बट टोटली डिफरेंट एनवायरमेंट. सिम्युलैक्रा. Visitors experience a hyper-real version of reality that blurs the line between fiction and reality. ठीक है? So these are the three most important other thinkers. There are more, two more, which I want you to read by your own also. Deleuze and Guattari. See, Deleuze and Guattari will figure in almost all theories from now. But yes, Deleuze has also talked about simulacra, because we're talking about Baudrillard. So let's talk about it a little bit. He wrote this work. इनका जो main focus था Deleuze का, that's how it's spelled. Deleuze. Deleuze. Okay, and he actually questioned Baudrillard's concept of simulacra. See, Baudrillard was not the first one to talk about it. If we go really back, Plato had already talked about it. And Deleuze जो है वो प्लेटो से सहमत हैं. अभी हमने क्रिटिसिज्म नहीं पढ़ा है, बट आई एम श्योर आपने सुना ही होगा. व्हाट डज प्लेटो से? प्लेटो सेज दैट he talks about good copy and bad copies, phantasma, Acon, and he has talked about everything being a copy actually, which is not real. Real is only the idea. I will not go into detail. So he Deleuze जो है, he agrees with Plato, and he questions Baudrillard by saying that why are you talking about reality and copies, क्योंकि सभी कुछ copy है already. ठीक है? So idea, that's what he says. He says this is a false dichotomy because the original itself is a copy. That's what he says. And yes, and another concept that I want you to read is deterritorialization. Flows and deterritorialization. Again, it was a concept which was introduced by Deleuze and Guattari, Guattari. And they describe this connectivity and endless proliferation of machines, science and power. Deterritorialization captures the postmodern post-structuralist thinking about authority, power and space. And they also wrote a very famous work, Anti-Oedipus, rejecting Freud's theory. We'll talk about that later. So these are some of the other post-structuralist thinkers. Please read about them more and get a very clear idea in your head, and also go through the works that they have written in relation to deconstruction or post-structuralism. I hope you've understood. Please share the video and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.